chance or accident is contradicted by countless billions of details of intricate plan and purpose organization. Because the fact of a creator is so openly evident, the proponents of atheism have found it necessary to exert themselves. A great effort had always been carried on to combat the unanimous testimony of nature. Therefore, when Darwin proposed his theory in 1860, it was greeted with enthusiasm by the opponents of the truth, and they hastened to embrace the opportunity which now seemed available. A worldwide campaign was initiated to expand this doctrine and to bring the minds of all men under its influence. But Darwin had no evidence of any kind. And after 120 years of the most intensive effort, there is still no evidence of any kind. I'm quoting from a professor of paleontology at Harvard University. Now, he doesn't appreciate my quoting him because he's an evolutionist. But this is what he himself said. Darwinism was not inductive science. Darwinism was not based on observation, but it was merely a philosophy, end quote. Again, this is said by a prominent evolutionist who fights for this theory and attempts to propagate it in the world. And he states, Darwinism is not inductive science. It was not based on observation, but it was merely a philosophy, end quote. It must be made clear at the outset, the theory of evolution is based on no facts or evidence. It is purely wishful thinking, born out of the necessity to explain creation without recourse to a creator. First, there is no known process that can create new forms of life or even new organs. Now, there are theories, but there is not a single process that is known to do that, or that ever did it, as is known to us from any facts or records. Secondly, there is no evidence that anything essentially new has ever come into being. Now let us first of all note, in all of recorded history, no new form or even a new organ has actually been observed. All around us today, we see only the repetition of what has always existed. True, many kinds have become extinct, but no new kinds have ever been seen to come into existence. All the claims for evolution are pushed back into the imaginary time before recorded history. Quote, "He who wishes to lie speaks of far-off matters," end quote. Again, mankind has never witnessed in the period since they began recording their history any change that would create a new organ, not even a single organ. Mankind has never witnessed the case of a bird that was in the process of becoming a mammal. They never witnessed a reptile in the process of becoming a bird. Whatever was continues to exist in the same manner. All the claims for evolution are pushed back in the time that they imagine existed before mankind began recording. Now, evolution requires that a large number of poorly adapted forms should always be in existence on their way up to more perfect levels. These transitional forms would represent the in-between steps by which the various levels would blend with each other. Let's say you would see a reptile whose scales are gradually changing into feathers, whose cold-blooded system is gradually turning into a warm-blooded system. How that can happen, I leave to the imagination. But this cannot happen in one moment, and therefore there should have been thousands upon thousands of in-between forms that represented the gradual changes. Whether the changes were as slow as Darwin imagined or as rapid as Gould imagined. But all of them require in-between steps. And nowhere do you find today any such case. In the millions of organisms existing today, we do not see any change taking place that would turn one form into another form. Nowhere are such transitional forms found alive today. Why not? Why did all this happen when nobody was around to see it? And now that we have eyes and we have pens to record, the entire process stopped as if it never happened, which is the truth. Now, nowhere have such transitional forms been found in the rocks. Wherever we look, both in today's flora and fauna and in the extinct forms of vegetable life and animal life preserved in rocks in the form of fossils, forms that are perfectly adapted, with quotation marks, with organs and instincts that enable them to cope successfully with their environment. Let me quote again our reluctant witness, Stephen Jay Gould, the professor of paleontology of Harvard University. Quote, paleontologists have documented virtually no cases of slow and steady transformation. Not for horses, not for humans, end quote. This means in the rocks there are no fossils of partially developed creatures. Every plant and animal is efficiently organized for its functions. Each is an eloquent testimonial to its creator. Quote, all your works praise you, end quote, from Thiele, which means every one of the phenomena is a witness that testifies to the designer that made them exactly for their purpose. Now, out of trillions of witnesses, let us randomly choose to listen to the testimony of the larvae of the Deathwatch beetle. The Deathwatch beetle. We're talking about the larvae, Deathwatch beetle. This weak, soft creature bores its way through wood because it is able to digest wood. How did that happen? In its alimentary canal, there are pockets of yeast plants which function like a brewery and digest the wood. How did the larvae acquire the yeast plants? There were none inside the egg from which it was hatched. Where did the yeast plants come from that this larva needs so desperately in order to bore its way through wood? But the mother beetle has two receptacles of yeast plants located near the orifice from which she lays eggs. And therefore, when each egg emerges, there are yeast plants that cling to the shell. When the larva nibbles its way out of its shell, it swallows some of the yeast plants. Now, is this arrangement the result of random gene mutations? Does any part of this arrangement bespeak a state of transition, of half-completed organs, so to speak, on the way up, of any intermediate steps between a lower form and a higher form? Every detail here is composed of countless subsidiary and complementary details. Nothing is simple here. And all are completely suited for their individual function and for their collective functions. Such miraculous arrangements and billions of others far more spectacular fill every spot on the earth. Their testimony is loud and clear, and they bear witness to the master designer who perfected them. Let us take another